Name's Travis Holt. I served 5 seasons as a backcountry ranger out of Kotzebue, Alaska. I was born in Fairbanks, raised on hard winters, deep woods, and the kind of terrain that chews up search parties and never spits them back out. I wasn't new to the bush. I wasn't new to fear, either. You work this job long enough, you see things. Exposure deaths, bear attacks, hypothermia so bad the victims don't even look human anymore. But I'd never seen anything like what happened out past Eagle's Nest in 2019. I remember the day they flew in, August 3rd. It was unusually warm, mid-50s, clear skies, no fog, 4 hikers, young, 2 couples, from New Jersey, I think. They booked their trip through a glamping adventure service, but they wanted something more off-grid, something raw, they said. Wanted to be dropped in by float plane, then spend 8 days camping through the Kuskokwim back trails, and eventually loop back to the pickup site at Blue Knoll Basin. Remote stuff, wilderness that's not even on some maps. I dropped them at Eagle's Nest Point myself, watched them unpack, set up camp near the river edge. Nothing special, just standard issue ultralight tents, camp stove, some bear spray, and freeze-dried food. They smiled a lot. One of the guys, Nate, asked about wolves. The other, Darren, joked about making it out alive. That kind of banter. I gave them the usual safety talk. Store food away from camp, keep the tent zipped tight, don't wander at night. They nodded, said they understood. When I left them, the sun was just starting to stretch sideways. That eerie horizontal glow we get when it's late up north, but not dark. Stillness. That's what I remember most about that evening. The kind of quiet that presses against your skin. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. And I remember thinking, that's peace. They'll never forget this place. The next morning, I got the call. Well, more like static. The service is spotty out there, but I could make out enough. Voices overlapping, someone yelling, and one phrase that stuck. Something opened our tent. Over and over. Same words, same confusion. I tried to respond. Nothing, just hiss and pop. I marked it down in the log. Figured maybe it was a curious fox. Maybe they left the zipper halfway down. But still, something gnawed at me. You get instincts when you're in this job long enough. And mine told me to head out. It took me 3 hours by snowmobile and then foot to reach them. When I arrived, everything looked untouched. Tent standing, gear where it should be, no signs of a struggle. But they were different. All 4 of them. Pale, silent, like people trying to keep it together just long enough not to fall apart in front of each other. Jess, one of the girls, wouldn't let go of her sleeping bag. It was zipped up and then taped shut around her chest with gray duct tape. I asked why. She said, I woke up freezing. The bag was open. I didn't unzip it, I swear I didn't. Her hands were shaking. They told me what happened, haltingly, like they were still trying to believe it. Around 2 a.m., they heard something outside the tents. Heavy steps, not crashing like a moose or trotting like a wolf. No breathing either, just slow, careful movement, circling. They called out, "Who's there?" But no response. Then it stopped. Then a zipper, not from the outside in, from the inside out. Said it moved down halfway, before Nate snapped on his headlamp and shouted. No one saw anything, but they said there were footprints around the tent. Bare, human, but only 2 sets. None leading in, none leading out, just around the tents, and only on one side. The side that faced the woods. I checked myself. There was nothing by the time I got there. The soil was too dry, too hard-packed, no prints, no drag marks, but I know they believed it, and I knew better than to call them crazy. I offered to escort them back, but they said they'd stay. Said they'd hike out sooner, maybe shorten the loop. That was fine. I logged the incident and made a note to check on them the next day. That night I radioed base, but again, only static. Clear skies. No reason for signal loss. I still don't have an explanation for that. They lasted one more night. Just one. I didn't hear from them the next day. No check-in. No ping on the satellite phone. No response to calls. So I went back. Took me 4.5 hours this time because of fog rolling in. When I reached the camp, they were gone. Just gone. No packs, no food, no gear. Tents were slashed, not clean. Like someone took a jagged rock and tore upward from the inside. There was blood on one of the flaps. Just a little. Smear-like. Like someone touched it while crawling out. But no trail. No bodies. No sign of animals. No drag marks, nothing that made sense. Except this, their map. It was pinned to a tree with a tent stake, and the route was scratched out. Big X marks over Eagle's Nest. Another one over Blue Knoll. But one trail, one narrow game path that wasn't part of the loop, was circled, red ink, and written next to it, in shaky letters, "He walks when it's bright." We watched him walk through light. That trail was one I'd never mentioned. It doesn't go anywhere, just winds through a burned-out spruce grove. Ends at a cliff face. I searched for 3 days. Called in aerial support. We found no trace. No bodies. No gear. Not even tracks. It's like they got up and walked into the trees and never came out. People ask if I think they just got lost. That maybe they hallucinated. Maybe it was the light, the stress. Maybe it was wildlife. But I've worked this land long enough to know what animals do. I know what cold does, what fear does, and what I saw out there, that wasn't nature. That wasn't mental breakdown. That was something else. You don't just unzip yourself out of safety and vanish. You don't slash your only shelter and run toward a path that doesn't lead anywhere. And you sure as hell don't do it in silence, without leaving a single trace. So if you're watching this thinking, we should go to Alaska. We should get lost in the wild and be alone for a while. Let me be clear, you are not alone out there. Never were. Whatever they saw, whatever followed them through the light, it's still out there, and it's still waiting. Subscribe to MindFuel for real horror stories, told by the people who lived them, or survived just long enough to warn you. True fear doesn't fade, and neither will what comes next. Alaska has the highest number of missing person reports in the US per capita. Most vanish without a trace. Locals say it's the terrain, the cold, nature. Locals lie. You won't find this on any official report, not the full version. Some of the search logs were redacted. Some were never filed at all. What you're about to hear, some of it came from my field journals. The rest, pulled from their own notes, scratched in margins, written in panic, left behind like they knew we'd need to know. This is the story of my last time camping. When I found the torn tents at Eagle's Nest Point, I should have called it in. Shut it down, sent the helo out and filed the code black. But I didn't. Something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe guilt. Maybe I already knew no one would find them the usual way. Instead, I followed the trail. The same one they circled on the map. It wasn't an official route, just a narrow game track cutting through wind-damaged forest. No flagging tape, no boot prints, just flattened reeds and broken brush, like something had passed through recently. Heavy, deliberate. I walked for maybe 3 miles before I reached the grove. You don't forget this place once you've seen it. A burn scar the size of a football field, trees stripped of bark, standing like charcoal bones. No birds, no insects, no movement. Even the snow around it seemed wrong. Too still, like it wasn't melting the way it should, like it was waiting. And that's where I found the notebook. Half buried in black ash, spine snapped, pages clinging to moisture. It belonged to Jess. The handwriting matched what I'd seen on their intake forms. The last entry was dated the night before they disappeared. Still light at 3 a.m. It walked around again, heard the snow crunch. Darren says I'm imagining it, but Nate saw the shadow. Said it bent wrong. Said it didn't match the trees. I zipped my bag shut and didn't sleep. I think it was inside the camp again. I don't think it breathes. Page after page, short bursts, unfinished sentences, words crossed out, rewritten. Then, one line that looked like it was etched harder than the others, like the pen nearly tore the page. Do not answer if it calls you by name. I don't know what that meant then. I still don't. But I kept the notebook, tucked it in my coat, and I moved forward. Beyond the grove, the trail narrowed again, thinner now, barely enough room to walk straight. The wind had changed too, no longer brushing through the trees but pulsing. Like breath, it hit in waves, always from behind me, never ahead. And then I saw the clearing. It wasn't marked on my map, not even in the aerial surveys, flat, round, like a crater, but no debris, just a ring of disturbed soil, like something had risen up, not crashed down. Centered in the middle, a small cairn of stones, 5, stacked neatly. On top of them, a single hiking boot. I recognized it. Nate's. He wore that model. Bright orange trim, waterproof lacing. I'd helped them unload those boots myself. No blood, no body, just the boot, facing west. That's when I heard the voice. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either, and it didn't echo like sound should in a clearing. It felt compressed, folded inside the space, like it was speaking into my head, not my ears, and it said just one thing. Travis. My name, that's all. Nothing else. Calm, perfectly clear, like a friend calling from across the yard. I don't remember drawing my weapon. I don't remember backing up. But the next thing I knew, I was standing at the edge of the trail again, backed away 30 feet without realizing it. Still facing the cairn, still hearing nothing else. I marked that location with orange tape, left it there, didn't touch the boot, didn't look for more. I got out fast. Back at base, I reviewed the satellite feeds. One sweep showed the Burn Scar Grove. The next didn't. That's not fog. That's not a glitch. That's removal, digital absence, a mile-wide section of forest just gone from the record. 3 days later, they closed that entire range for fire risk. No fires had been reported. No burns seen. No one asked me what I found. No one filed the missing persons officially. But I kept the notebook. I still have it. And if you think this is a story with a neat ending, you've never been to the bush. Things don't wrap up out there. They get buried. Or they get quiet. A year later, I got a call from a different hiker. Different season. Different spot. 50 miles east. Said they saw a cairn in the woods. 5 stones. Hiking boot on top. Said they heard a voice calling their name. The hiker's name wasn't Travis, but that's what the voice said. Subscribe to MindFuel. Turn on notifications. True stories like this aren't told in daylight. They're whispered through trees, and only the ones who survive get to whisper back. Before all this, before Eagle's Nest, before Jess's journal, before the cairn, I wasn't alone. That part of the story doesn't come later. It starts here, back when I still believed there were places man could walk without being watched. The trip wasn't official, not ranger duty, just a personal challenge. 10 days in the interior, no checkpoints, no ranger stations, no tourists. I planned it with 2 friends, Tom and Riley, both ex-wildland fire, both strong in the backcountry. We'd worked side by side clearing fire lines near the Yukon border for 3 seasons, trusted each other, knew how to handle wolves, storms, broken limbs, busted radios, all of it. So when we said we wanted the real wild, we meant it. No trails, no parks, just raw space, straight shot north from Denali Highway into dead territory, no rescue coverage, no cell towers, just the land and whatever was waiting on it. We fueled up at a small station near Paxson. I remember the silence when I mentioned our route to the cashier. She went stiff, looked at me, then at Tom, then back down to the register without saying anything. Riley thought maybe she didn't hear, said it louder, that we were cutting through Dry Creek Basin and then pushing east toward Cold Hook Ridge. Another man behind us, older guy, Hunter by the look of him, put his beer on the counter and didn't move, just stood there, then said flat, like he'd rehearsed it. "Out there, you won't need a compass. If they want you lost, you'll be lost." Tom laughed. Riley too. I smiled politely, but I didn't forget it. There's something about the way locals say things up here. Not superstition. Not folklore. They say it like weather. Like it's just another thing that happens. Cold snap, early frost, missing people. We parked the truck about 5 miles off the gravel spine near a dried-out tributary that barely passed for a road. Loaded our packs, marked the coordinates, and stepped off the edge of the known. The first 2 days were perfect. Cold but bearable. Light stayed long, snow crusted but breakable. No one spoke about work or noise, or the cities, just walking, fire building, boil bags for dinner, whiskey at night. Riley carried an old analog camera and kept snapping shots of what he called the clean nothing. Trees, fog, valleys with no names, no sounds but our boots and the occasional sweep of a raven overhead. But on day 3, something changed. It wasn't sudden, more like subtraction. You ever feel that? Where something's missing, but you can't say what yet? We woke up, and the snow around our camp was wrong. The top layer was crisscrossed with shallow impressions. Not footprints exactly, more like drag marks, as if something walked low to the ground. Clawed, maybe, but not in a way I recognized. And they weren't scattered. They were circling. We joked it off, said it was probably a lynx, maybe a wolverine. But I saw the way Tom scanned the tree line, how Riley kept rubbing the back of his neck. Something was chewing at us from underneath, even if no one said it out loud yet. That night we camped by a frozen pond, still water, thin layer of ice across the top with bubbles stuck beneath. Riley thought it looked like stars, trapped underwater. We were quiet longer than usual, no fire, wind too high. We just sat in our bags and listened. Then we heard it. Not close, not distant, somewhere in the in-between. A clicking, regular, like bone on stone. Riley sat up first, said, "Do you hear that?" I nodded. Then Tom said something I didn't expect. "It's been getting closer for the last hour." I hadn't realized. The sound had crept in so slowly, it felt natural, like it belonged. But now it was too loud to ignore. Click, pause, click, click, like teeth trying to remember how to chew. We turned on no lights. We didn't call out, just lay back down, zipped our bags, and stayed silent. Something instinctual kicked in, like prey flattening in tall grass. Eventually, the clicking stopped. Just gone. Like it had never been there. But no one slept. Not really. Riley took first watch, then me, then Tom. When dawn finally came, if you can call that gray blur dawn, we stepped outside the tent and saw that the pond's ice had cracked right down the middle. A single, perfect fracture. The snow around it? Untouched. No steps. No drag marks. Nothing. As if whatever came never touched the ground. We packed up fast. No coffee, no talking, just moved. Something had taken the silence and twisted it into a presence. I could feel it with every step, in the way the trees leaned, in how the birds never returned, in how our map felt suddenly wrong. Riley was the first to admit it. Around midday, he stopped walking, turned, and said, "We're not where we're supposed to be." I checked the compass, still north, checked the terrain against the topography, sort of matched. But something was off. We should have hit the riverbed by now, or the shale ridge, but the landscape had doubled back on itself. I recognized a stand of pines we'd passed the day before, same split trunk, same raven's nest, but we'd never turned around. A torn piece of synthetic fabric, tent nylon, same model Riley was carrying, only his pack was full. We checked, nothing missing, but this piece was stained, faded, frayed at the edges like it had been out here years. A fragment from a tent that hadn't been made yet. Tom didn't speak, just picked it up, turned it over, and pointed to the tag. Same company, same size, same color as the one packed in his own bag. Only the tag said 2016. Subscribe to MindFuel. These stories aren't shared, they escape. And once you've heard them, the woods don't forget your name either. There's a moment in every backcountry trip where you convince yourself you've arrived. You stop watching your step. You take a deeper breath. The worst is behind you. You're in it now. That moment, ours, was just before nightfall on the fourth day. We'd finally set up camp high above the Cold Hook Shelf. Real elevation. Wind biting through the tree line, but the view made up for it. A full panorama of untouched Alaskan interior, peaks in every direction, sun hanging low and fat, like it never wanted to dip below the horizon. Riley kept saying it was too quiet, but we laughed it off, called it peace, called it earned. The site itself was miles from anything official. No trails, no foot traffic. Just a flat patch of frostbitten moss and a sloping ridge behind us. We pitched the tent close to a rock outcropping for wind protection, gathered wood we didn't need, and rationed one last whiskey pour before crawling in for the night. That was the first knock. I don't know what time it was. The sun had only dimmed slightly. It never fully sets that time of year. Everything outside had that blue-gray tint, like light trapped behind a storm cloud. I was half asleep when I heard it. A crunch, then a second. Something stepping through the frost. Slowly, deliberately. At first, I thought it was a moose, or maybe caribou, but the breathing, it was close, closer than the steps. Heavy, steady, not labored like a bear's, not snorting like a deer, just breathing like someone standing over you in a quiet room. I froze, so did Tom. I could feel it. His body had gone stiff inside the bag next to mine. Riley didn't say anything. He just sat up, slowly, like a man surfacing from deep water. No growl, no sniff, just that breath. 5 seconds, 10, then the zipper moved. Not fast, not frantic. A slow draw downward, tooth on tooth, like whoever or whatever was opening it had done it before, had time, knew exactly how a tent sounded when it gave way. I don't remember what I said. I don't think I said anything at all. Riley screamed, high and sharp, like someone had jammed ice down his back. He kicked toward the flap and I followed. Unzipped the rest of the way, burst out onto the snow, expecting to see anything. A moose, a bear, a person. But there was nothing, no movement, no shapes, no fleeing figure disappearing over the ridge, just trees, wind, and the quiet. Tom came out last, gripping the hatchet from his pack. Riley was shaking. He kept looking over his shoulder, asking if we'd seen it, asking what we saw. I didn't answer. Neither did Tom. The tent was still intact, zipper all the way down, our bags untouched, no tearing, no signs of an animal paw or snout. And the kicker, There was no snow inside. Nothing had stepped through. We tried to explain it away. Wind, maybe. Static shift in the fabric. Some mechanical failure in the zipper coil. Anything we could make stick. But then Riley pointed to the tracks. Just beyond the camp, no more than 10 feet from where we'd slept. Bare feet, human, clear as daylight. They didn't come from the woods. They started at the edge of our tent and they walked away, step by step. Deep prints, heels, arches, toes, each one pressed firm into the snow as if the person had been standing there for hours. But the weirdest part? There weren't any return prints, nothing leading to the tent, just a beginning, and then a trail off into the timber. Riley said it first, quietly, like he didn't want the trees to hear him. Who walks barefoot in this cold? No one answered, because we all knew the truth. No one should. Not out here, not in these temperatures, not in the dead middle of nowhere. We didn't sleep again that night. We kept the headlamps on, sat with our backs against each other like rookies. Every gust of wind, every crack of branch, we flinched, waiting for the second knock. It never came. But in the morning, the footprints were gone. Not snowed over, not drifted, just gone. No melting, no scatter, like the person had walked out of the world itself. We tore down camp in minutes. No breakfast, no repack, just shoved gear in packs and moved. None of us talked about it for the rest of the day, but every hour or so I'd catch Tom turning around, scanning the ridge behind us, like he expected to see someone there, watching, barefoot, waiting. Subscribe to MindFuel now, because some stories don't ask permission to be remembered. They follow you, and if you're lucky, they just let you go. The forest changed after that night. I don't mean the terrain, I mean the air, the rhythm, the way it breathed. It felt thinner, more still, like something had pressed a glass dome over the land and vacuumed the sound out. On the morning of day 5, we noticed it all at once. There were no birds, no squirrels, not even wind in the branches. You don't realize how loud a forest is until it shuts up on you. Riley was the first to break the silence. He clicked his tongue once, like he was calling for a dog. It echoed, unnatural, empty. Tom gave him a look, didn't say anything, but we all felt it. That tightness behind the ribs. The way you breathe shallower when you realize you're being watched. We kept moving east, thinking maybe it was a dead zone. Some ecological thing. Cold front, predator nearby. We kept rationalizing. People like us, we're trained to. You see a bear print, you log it. You don't panic, you make space. But this was different. This felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. Just before noon, Riley spotted something through the trees. A corner, weathered timber poking out from behind a collapsed stand of birch. We cut through the brush and found it. A shack, or what was left of one. Small, maybe 8 by 10. No windows, a rusted stovepipe sticking through the top like a bent finger. The roof had partially caved in, and the moss had started eating its way up the walls. Looked like it had been there 30 years, easy. But what stopped us cold were the scratch marks. They weren't on the outside. They were on the inside of the door. Dozens of them, cross-hatched, gouged deep. Some shallow, some so deep the wood had splintered and curled, like something had tried to claw its way out. I reached for the handle and paused. It was looped with wire, homemade, twisted tight. Someone hadn't just locked this place, they'd sealed it, like whatever had been inside wasn't meant to leave. We broke the wire anyway. Curiosity's dangerous like that. Inside, it smelled like old earth and iron. Everything was rotted. Caught in the corner. Frame collapsed in on itself. Moldy tin cans in a wooden crate. a broken compass nailed to the wall. But in the center, half covered in dirt and leaves, was a folded sheet of canvas. It was a map, hand-drawn, yellowed and torn at the edges, trails that didn't match any topography we'd seen, markers that made no sense, symbols etched into the corners. It looked more like a warning than a guide. And across the bottom, carved, not written, dug in deep and shaky like the blade slipped more than once, was a single word: stay. That's when I noticed the frost inside the shack. It had crept across the floor. The air was colder in here too, much colder than outside. We didn't say anything. We just backed out, slow. By the time we made camp that night, no one was talking. We didn't light a fire, not even a headlamp, just zipped the tent, kept our weapons close, and listened. The silence lasted until sometime after midnight. Then, chanting. Not loud, not close, just distant enough that you'd think you imagined it. Faint, rhythmic syllables, not English, not any language I knew, but the cadence was human, voices moving through the trees like wind. Tom gripped his knife so hard his knuckles went white. Riley mouthed, "Do you hear it?" But I didn't answer. We all heard it. All of us. And we stayed frozen in our bags while the sound passed around us. Not toward. Around. Circling. Measured. Like it knew we were there. Like it was marking something. Then it stopped. All at once. As if a switch had been thrown. No retreating footsteps. No final word. Just gone. Like the forest swallowed it whole. We didn't move for hours. Not until the gray of morning broke the tent walls. Even then, we opened the flap like something might still be there, but nothing was, not even tracks. But the stillness had deepened, like whatever was watching wasn't outside anymore, like it had gotten closer. Subscribe to MindFuel to follow the rest. Not everything out here wants to be found. But some things wait to be followed. I've spent most of my life reading maps. I trust direction, orientation, points on a line. That trust started to unravel on day 6. It began with the GPS. We weren't even using it much, just to double-check our heading once every few hours, but that morning, it wouldn't connect, just blinked a loading screen, no satellites, no data. Then the compass started spinning. Tom was the first to notice. We had paused by a ravine to reorient, and he pulled out the compass from his parka. The needle was twitching. Slow, then fast, looping like it couldn't make up its mind. He tapped it once, twice. It spun faster. We tried another. Same thing. We assumed some kind of magnetic interference, but out there's nothing man-made for miles. No lines, no towers, just raw terrain. You don't get false readings in that kind of wilderness, unless something wants you lost. That night, we barely spoke. I don't remember what we ate. I remember the wind hitting the tent harder than usual, pushing the fabric in with long, slow breaths, like the forest itself was inhaling around us. Riley passed out quick. Tom didn't. He sat up the whole night, or at least until he shook me awake, maybe 2 or 3 a.m. His face was pale, wet with sweat. He said he saw Riley, standing outside the tent, just standing there. I looked over. Riley was asleep, still zipped up in his bag, mouth slightly open, same cough he'd had since day 2. I said maybe he was sleepwalking. Tom shook his head. No, he said. He was watching us, but his eyes were wrong. We stayed up the rest of the night. I don't think Tom blinked once. The next morning, we packed everything fast. We were done. We weren't talking about finishing the loop or pushing through. We just wanted out. We marked our direction and walked. No stopping, no detours, dead straight. 3 hours, that's all. 3 hours in one direction. And then we saw the boot prints. Our boot prints. My tread. Flat toe, cracked heel. Tom's zigzag lugs. Riley's diagonal edge marks from that busted lace loop. Same formation, same spacing, pressed into the same patch of hard snow. We had walked in a perfect line and come back to the beginning. No circles, no doubling back. We watched the sun the whole time, tracked it with the shadows. And yet we ended up right where we'd started, like the woods had folded in on us, or worse, like they'd moved around us. That was when we found the trail cam. It was tucked high on a black pine, half covered in moss, weathered, old, like it hadn't been touched in years. No logo, no brand, just a matte black casing and a small blinking red light. We pulled it down. It had a memory card, still intact. Against better judgment, we played it. First, nothing. Just a still frame of our tents. Same spot, same angle. Then time lapse. Morning, afternoon, twilight. Then something. The camera didn't shake. It didn't move. But suddenly, in the upper left frame, a figure appeared. Not approaching. Not walking. Just there. Too far to see the face. Human-shaped. Standing just beyond the fire pit, arms at its sides, no movement, no tilt of the head, just watching. Then it cuts, jumps ahead by seconds. The figure is closer now, still motionless. Closer again, same pose, closer. The final frame? It's standing between our two tents, and its head is tilted just slightly, toward the lens. Then, static, no sound, no retreat, just gone. We watched that footage 6 times. Riley was shaking. Tom didn't speak at all. I deleted the file, reformatted the card, threw the whole camera off the ridge. But that image burned in, because none of us had ever seen it. Not once. Not that night, not the next morning. But the camera had. Something had stood between us, inches away, close enough to breathe, close enough to reach in and unzip a tent from the inside. And it hadn't made a sound. Subscribe to MindFuel and stay with us, because some paths don't just lead you off the map, they trap you inside it. I woke up to silence, not the usual kind, not the empty hush we'd grown used to. This was off. No wind, no forest, no sound at all, like the land had hit mute. Riley was gone. His bag was there, half zipped, still warm. His boots gone. No prints, no drag, no signs of panic, just a missing. I stood outside the tent for 10 full minutes trying to make sense of it. I checked the trees, the slope behind us, nothing, like he'd been plucked clean from the world without even brushing the snow. Tom kept saying Riley must have gone to relieve himself. But I saw the look in his eyes. He already knew. We both did. We spread out slowly, calling his name. I kept my rifle close, but it felt useless, like trying to guard against fog with a stick. 100 yards from camp, we found the first clue, a strip of fabric. Torn, navy blue, Riley's hoodie. Then another, caught on a branch, then a third. It led us down slope, a trail of shredded pieces, like breadcrumbs or bait. Every 30 feet or so, another scrap, each one smaller than the last. Then we found the hoodie itself, perfectly folded, in the snow, centered between 2 dead trees, arms crossed neatly over the chest, like someone had laid it down with care. And underneath it, dry ground, no melting, no body heat, like it had been placed there long before we arrived. That's when we heard it. Faint, cracked, like someone yelling from the edge of a dream. "Help me. I'm cold. I can't move." Riley's voice. Tom turned and looked at me, wild-eyed. He didn't wait for a plan, just bolted toward the sound. I ran after him, branches slashing at my face. The voice was ahead, always ahead, just far enough to keep you chasing. It would stop, then call again, a little farther. Always Riley, always helpless. We reached a clearing. Tom was 10 steps ahead. He stopped suddenly, whipped around. I'll never forget the look on his face, somewhere between confusion and terror. Then he stepped backward once, twice, and vanished. Gone. No sound, no scream. Just there 1 second, then not. I reached the spot, skidded to my knees, and saw it. A hole. Almost perfectly circular, maybe 8 feet wide, swallowed by deadfall and pine needles. You wouldn't have seen it unless you were standing on top of it. It went down farther than my eyes could follow. Black, damp. The edges were too smooth, unnatural, worn like something had used it repeatedly. I leaned in, my breath fogged into it. That's when I saw the claw marks. Dozens, vertical, etched deep into the earth and stone. Some curved, some straight. Not from a single set of hands, many, layered over each other, some fresh, some old. And then came the whispering. Not Riley, not even human. Just breath shaped into syllables too broken to make sense. Dozens of them, layered like wind moving through cracked teeth. Some were below, some were behind me. I stood paralyzed for a moment, long enough to know I was being watched from the dark beneath that hole, from inside the earth itself. Then something scraped the edge. Not a movement, a sound, nails maybe, bone. It pulled at the dirt gently, just once, like it wanted me to know it was there. I backed away. I didn't run. I couldn't. That forest wasn't letting anyone run anymore. It wanted me to walk, slowly, blindly, just like Tom, just like Riley. I made it back to the camp, alone. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, just watched the trees. By morning, the hole was gone. Covered, filled in, as if it had never existed. Not a depression, not a crack. Like the ground had healed itself overnight, or like it had swallowed what it wanted and moved on. Subscribe to MindFuel. Don't look away. Don't stop. Because some stories don't end, they wait. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 8, or if you'd like me to keep going right now. The forest kept changing, not in shape, just in feel. Like the trees were leaning in closer, but not physically. Like space itself was shrinking around me. I walked for a day after the hole. Didn't stop, didn't eat. I couldn't feel my legs, I just moved. Out of instinct, out of fear. Late afternoon, I found the hut. It was tucked low in a ravine, half collapsed, mold-covered, nearly hidden beneath pine boughs. Old, pre-statehood old. The kind of place built by hands that didn't expect to be found. No lock, no welcome. Just a warped wooden door and something scratched into it so deeply the marks had become grooves. 3 vertical lines crossed by a 4th, like a tally or a warning. Inside, it stank of wet rot and dried blood. Animal, probably. The floor was warped, the rafters splintered, but it was shelter. And that night, that was enough. The first night I felt them. Not saw, not heard, felt. Like the air around the hut had thickened, pressing against the walls like water rising around a sinking boat. I didn't sleep. I lay on the floor with the rifle across my chest and watched the door. Nothing moved. Nothing knocked. But something waited. Second night, I heard the first click. It came just after midnight, outside the walls, like bone tapping bone. Sharp, dry, rhythmic. 2 clicks, then 3, then silence, then again. Closer. No footsteps, no voice. Just that sound. As if something tall, something jointed, was standing outside the hut, testing the seams with its fingers. I lit no fire. I didn't want it to see me. Didn't want it to know I was awake. Third night, it entered. I'd found a crawl space beneath the floorboards earlier that day, half collapsed, filled with brittle animal bones and rusted metal traps. It smelled of oil and fur and something older, but it was a place to hide. When the clicks started again, I went down. I lay still, on my back, beneath warped beams, rifle across my chest, just above me, the trap door I'd pried loose. I pulled it mostly closed, leaving a sliver to breathe through. Then I waited. At first, just the wind. Then, soft, deliberate. The hinges creaked. One footstep, then another. It didn't walk like a person. The weight was wrong, light, then sudden, then nothing, like it hovered between each step. Then the clicking started again, inside the room now, louder, as if echoing through a skull. It didn't match the movement. It wasn't footsteps. It was speech. The thing didn't breathe, but it spoke. It said my name. At first quiet, from one side of the room. Travis. Then it said it again, but the voice had changed. Help me, I'm cold, I can't move. Riley. Then Tom. He's still out there, you left him. You left me. Then the worst part. It used my own voice. I'm down here, beneath the floor, hiding like a coward. The thing circled the room. I heard it brushing the walls. I felt the dust falling from the floorboards onto my face. Then, silence. For almost a full minute, nothing. Then came the sound I'll never forget. It knelt, right above me, slowly, deliberately, until the weight of it bowed the boards above my chest, just an inch between us. I didn't breathe. Couldn't. Then it began clicking again. Slower this time. 1. Pause. 1. Pause. Like it was thinking. Like it knew. It stayed there, for what felt like an hour. Then it stood, without a sound. The door creaked open again, and shut. I didn't come out until dawn. When I did, there were no tracks. No disturbed soil, just silence, as if nothing had been there, as if the hut itself had imagined it. But I hadn't, because I heard it, felt it, saw the dust fall, and I knew now. Those things in the forest, whatever they are, they don't chase you. They wait. They learn. They become. Subscribe to MindFuel. Every chapter brings you closer to the truth. But ask yourself, how close do you really want to get? After 3 nights in that cursed hut, I knew I couldn't stay. Whatever was out there was learning, adapting, waiting to drag me down like it had Tom and Riley. I found the emergency beacon in my pack, the one I'd stashed before this madness began, and prayed it still worked. I pressed the button and waited. For hours, nothing. The forest swallowed all sound, all light. Then, just before dark, the distant thrum of rotors shattered the silence. I stumbled out of the trees, waving my arms, shouting until my voice cracked. The helicopter came closer, the spotlight burning through the dusk. Relief washed over me. Finally, rescue. Escape. They pulled me in, wrapped me tight. I was weak, dehydrated, hypothermic, shaking with cold and fear. I couldn't speak at first, just stared down at the endless wilderness fading behind me, knowing it had taken everything. At the hospital, the questions came fast. I told them everything, the hole, the hut, the footprints, the voices, the disappearing friends. But the rangers said it didn't make sense. According to their records, I was only missing 2 days. There was no evidence of any cabin, no trapper's hut, tucked in a ravine. No hole in the ground, no trail camera, no shredded fabric, no footprints. They searched the area I described and found nothing but untouched snow and endless trees. They told me one thing that chilled me deeper than any cold. Sometimes the wilderness keeps its secrets better than we do. But I know the truth. Out there, in the dark heart of Alaska, some things are waiting, watching, listening. And if you ever hear the zipper of your tent sliding open, you'll know it's already too late. This is the true story of my last camping trip. Subscribe to MindFuel for the full account and to uncover more stories that haunt the edges of reality. Because out there, The wild isn't just nature. It's something else entirely. We went in with food, firewood, and friendship, ready to face the wild on our own terms. I came out with nothing but frostbite, trauma, and the sound of myself whispering from the trees. They say the wilderness is where you find yourself. I found something else, something that doesn't let you go. To this day, Riley and Tom's bodies have not been found. If you've ever heard of strange disappearances in Alaska, or have your own story from the wild, drop a comment. Share your experience. You're not alone. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell on MindFuel to keep uncovering the world's darkest truths. Coming up next, the cold ones, the entity beneath Denali. You won't want to miss it.